Ah, hello, brewmasters. Yes, it is I, the conspicuous moo. And I had a thought in the shower today, and I thought I'd share it all with you. Isn't that kind of me? I saw it was a comment recently, and it sort of said, why don't we just use spinning crane kick instead of rushing jade wind in our rotation instead? And they've got a point. There is a certain case for if you're going to reintroduce spinning crane kick to the brewmaster rotation, then it should replace rushing jade wind, surely. But I thought, has anyone actually tested this yet? And I wasn't really sure. So I went to the dummies, I did some numbers, and I've got the results. So let's get cracking. First of all, let's make the case for Rushing Jade Wind. Rushing Jade Wind's main advantage is that it is free to use. It doesn't cost energy, it doesn't cost mana, it doesn't cost good intentions. It's just something you press every 8 seconds or so, and maintains a fair amount of damage. So yes, it also fills a rather important gap in the brewmaster rotation. If you want it to be relatively smooth, then adding Rushing Jade Wind really does make a difference in that respect. It is rather good damage. It tends to be second or third on damage overall, and it is consistent. You know what you're getting with it, so it's very valuable in that sense as well. So overall, it is a solid but unspectacular and fairly dull choice that we've had for at least one expansion, if not two, and will probably be the one that is most taken by brewmasters in the upcoming Shadowlands expansion. Now, the case for spinning crane kick. Now, the way it's designed at the moment is that it's supposed to be like an AoE filler. If you're on single target, you'll probably use Tiger Palm for the brew reduction, and if you're using spinning crane kick, then you'll get an additional second of shuffle. But it's really to fill in the gaps that are left over when everything else in the rotation has been done and you're facing multiple enemies. It does cost 25 energy, so that is definitely a drawback because it is going to recall on you doing a lot of more energy management. The only other two abilities which are absolutely key to have energy for are Tiger Palm to a lesser extent because of the brew reduction, but most importantly Keg Smash, which needs to be used on cooldown. So you'll find that if you were to shuffle off old Rushing Jade Wind there and you started using spinning crane kick instead, that you're going to have to be very, very careful about the way that you manage your energy, because it is all too easy to press spinning crane kick one too many times and then Keg Smash is available and you're not using it, and that is not a good thing. As I've just mentioned, it does have additional shuffle up time. This isn't really that important because you should have enough shuffle up time anyway if you're using Keg Smash and Blackout Kick on cooldown, and it does cap as well at I think 15 seconds last I checked. So yeah, I mean it's nice, but it's not important in any way. The one thing that I really love about it is if you don't have to take Rushing Jade Wind, you can take Exploding Keg. Now, Exploding Keg was our Legion ability. It was a lot prettier than... it was a lot prettier back in the day, let's say. In Legion, it was actual explosion of fire. It looked wonderful. And this is very much a ranged Keg Smash, but it is a ranged pull. And, it's a bit of snap AoE damage and threat, and is an awful lot more fun to use than crackling Jade Lightning and hoping that nobody creates any aggro issues before the mobs get to you. And, overall it is a slightly different thing to do in the rotation. One of the disadvantages with the latest Brewmaster design in Shadowlands is that there's not an awful lot more to the rotation than there was before. They've just taken Ironskin Brew out, put Celestial Brew in, but everything else has pretty much remained the same. There haven't been that many fundamental changes, so taking Rushing Jade Wind out, which has been a staple for so long, and then suddenly just using Spinning Crane Kick and weaving it into your rotation is a lot more interesting. So, of course, absolutely naturally, I went to the target dummies and I got my combat log up and I had a couple of minutes just messing around first with Rushing Jade Wind and then with Exploding Keg Talented, just to see, what are the numbers like. Now, for the vast majority of this, you can take away all of the other extraneous stuff. There's still a lot of random procs because we're still in that BFA death row phase, so nonsense like Spark Coil and Tidal Surge and stuff like Ancient Flame, it just throws the numbers off. I got more I got substantially more DPS out of Keg Smash on the second run, which, you know, does make a lot of sense. It crit a bit more, my uptime is a little lower, but what we're really looking for are the damage values for Rushing Jade Wind, Spinning Crane Kick and Exploding Keg. And we start with Rushing Jade Wind, and, you know, 18.2k damage over the testing time at 280.4 DPS is pretty decent. Like I say, you know, it's second on the list, so that's rather good. And, you know, it is like consistent damage. You know, it's a lot less taxing on you as a rotational ability. However, and I wasn't expecting this, Spinning Crane Kick in a similar window, a couple more casts I think, but did 22.9k damage at 322.3 DPS, so it is more DPS if you are weaving this in. But, you know, if you look at the cast, you know, you have to cast Spinning Crane Kick twice as often to get slightly better DPS, so, you know, that's not amazing by any means. And then, of course, we do need to factor in Exploding Keg as well, because that's what we're able to choose as a result of not taking Rushing Jade Wind. And, yeah, I mean, you get to use it once in the minute, and it had a nice big explosion for 16k damage at 228.6 DPS. So if you combine the two, it is substantially more damage, which was something I was not expecting at all. So, you know, from those just raw numbers, the inferences to draw here is that if you're using it correctly and weaving it in, you know, Spinning Crane Kick and Exploding Keg are potentially more DPS, and just baseline, than Rushing Jade Wind in a typical AoE situation of at least 4 mobs for a prolonged period of time, and of course, providing that Exploding Keg is available because it is a 1-minute cooldown. However, it does require a lot more careful energy management to pull off, so because if you miss a Keg Smash, you are doing it wrong. You don't want them to go late, you need to hit those on cooldown. And you will lose a lot of brew reduction as well. If you might have noticed in the previous slide, I used Target Palm 10 times while using Rushing Jade Wind, and only the once, and that was probably accidental, let's be honest, on the Spinning Crane Kick one. So, you know, you could potentially lose a lot of brew reduction time as well if you were to go down the Spinning Crane Kick, Exploding Keg route. So let's go over a few disclaimers, caveats and wriggle outs for this very, very random and highly unscientific testing. You know, first of all, this is just dummy testing, so, you know, this isn't actually out in the field testing the damage and, you know, all the other variables, the people who are with you, what they're doing. And, you know, I'm not saying that this is the best rotation, you simply all must absolutely change, otherwise you're just not a brewmaster, are you? I do personally find this a lot more fun. It's a lot more engaging. Because, you know, you've got to watch your energy and you've got to make sure that that's okay, and you've got to make sure that Exploding Keg is up, and then you chuck it in there and it goes boom. It needs a better boom. I tweeted today about it actually. You know, if you're going to do Exploding Keg, let's have it explode. But it's definitely not a build for people who like to keep things simple, and, you know, you can keep the rotation a lot simpler just by using Rushing Jade Wind, and, you know, you'll still get very, very good results out of it. You just won't have that ranged AoE pull, and you know, you can still use Spinning Crane Kick in that rotation, you just won't be using it as often. It will just be that filler that I think it was originally intended to be. And, you know, it wasn't that much testing anyway, so, you know, there are a number of other factors at play. So, you know, your Covenant choice is going to affect this. You know, Necrolord at the moment, the Bone Dust Brew, still doesn't have an internal cooldown, so you can proc it an awful lot. You can already proc it a lot with Rushing Jade Wind, but, you know, with the amount of rotations you're doing, you know, the amount of spinning you're doing, you'll probably proc it a lot more with Spinning Crane Kick. You know, your legendary power choice. I mean, most people are going to go Stormstout's Last Keg, but if you do take Charred Passions, you know, that first 8 minutes after Breath of Fire, your Spinning Crane Kicks will do double damage, because they'll do an additional 100% as fire damage. So that's interesting as well. And, you know, of course, your own skill set. You might have seen from the logs that, you know, my Spinning Crane Kick effort, I wasn't quite 100% on the old Keg Smash, only 98%. And, you know, I'm not a mythic anything, so I'm not a great mythic dungeoner, I'm not a great mythic raider or anything like that, so, you know, this is entirely dependent on how comfortable you are at sort of kind of pushing the envelope, because you're making things more complicated for yourself, and then you've got all of the other things going on that you probably can't control, like idiots DPS or healers who are AFK or drunk. So yeah, it's just a bit of experimental fun, but you know, the more I think about it, the more I really like it. It's amazing to, you know, chuck an Exploding Keg out there, 1400 damage, hello boys, but then Keg Smash them, so you've got the hate even more, then your Breath of Fire, and then, you know, if you have actually got the Charred Passions on, then, you know, your next Blackout Kicks and Spinning Crane Kicks are going to do 100% additional damage as fire damage for the next 8 seconds. So, you know, imagine if you start using Spinning Crane Kick, then you're getting double damage on your Spinning Crane Kicks as well, and it's like, that is an amazing way to open a pool in any dungeon. You're going to be miles ahead. So yes, there you go, a little bit of experimental fun. I thought I'd just share that with you. I was just playing with numbers today, and I was actually surprised by the outcome. And, you know, I've always had this dream for Brewmaster that, you know, it would be much more about smashing brews, setting things on fire, burn baby burn, and, you know, this is starting to look like something I might want to play with. You know, I'm not going to be pushing, you know, Mythic World Firsts or 25 plus keys. So, you know, if I just want around setting fire to things and just causing complete and utter chaos, doing as much damage as I possibly can, this might be a goer. It certainly looks a lot of fun on paper, so yeah, I think that's probably going to be one of the variations that I try in the first few weeks of Shadowlands. Anyway, that is all for me for now. Let me know what you think. Is this the future? Probably isn't, but you know, it's hella fun, I tell you, especially Exploding Keg. Almost as much fun as Touch of Death. But you know, Touch of Death will always win. Boop. Anyway, I am the Conspicuous Moo, and a very, very good night to you.